By the 1920s, association football was exploding across Europe and South America. Local clubs were drawing massive crowds, and the physical intensity of a game was reaching new heights. But there was a structural problem. The only global stage for the sport was the Olympic Games, which strictly enforced amateur rules. If a working-class player needed compensation for missing days at the factory, known as broken time payments, they were banned from competing. The best talent in the world was locked out. FIFA president Jules Rimet saw an opening. He proposed bypassing the Olympic Committee entirely to create an independent world championship, one that explicitly welcomed professional players. To crown the best team on earth, football had to forcefully break away from the Olympic establishment. It was a massive organizational gamble. 5 European countries immediately raised their hands to host. But Uruguay won the bid by offering an unbeatable deal. They promised to build a massive new stadium and pay every single travel expense for any participating nation. Uruguay had deep political motivations. 1930 marked their centurion of independence, and they wanted to validate the back-to-back Olympic gold medals they had won in 1924 and 1928. Then reality set in. The Great Depression was tightening its grip on the global economy. Taking a 3-week ship ride to South America was wildly disruptive to domestic leagues, and major European powers like England, Germany, and Italy flatly refused to go. As the deadline approached, the expected influx of global talent failed to materialize. The commitments from Europe vanished, one by one. 2 months before kickoff, the inaugural World Cup was effectively dead in the water. It required an emergency intervention just to survive. Rimet went into a frantic diplomatic scramble. He called in a decade's worth of political favors and leaned heavily on regional alliances to successfully recruit France, Belgium, and Yugoslavia. In Romania, the intervention came from the top. King Carol II hand-picked the national squad himself, guaranteeing the players would not lose their civilian jobs. In late June, these 4 European squads boarded the SS Conte Verde on the French Riviera. The massive ocean liner essentially served as a floating embassy, carrying the entirety of Europe's World Cup presence across the Atlantic. Rimet traveled with them on the ship. Tucked in his suitcase was the newly commissioned gold-plated trophy they were traveling thousands of miles to contest. The first global tournament survived its earliest logistical nightmare through sheer individual obsession and royal decree. When the teams arrived in Montevideo, they were greeted by torrential winter rain and unfinished concrete. Construction on the massive Estadio Centenario was severely delayed. Organizers were forced to improvise. The opening matches of the World Cup had to be played in much smaller, local club grounds scattered around the city. Once the games began, the realities on the pitch were chaotic. Officiating standards varied wildly from match to match, and a largely unknown United States squad made a shocking run straight to the semifinals. The Argentine captain, Manuel Ferreira, actually left the tournament halfway through to take a law exam back in Buenos Aires. His replacement, Guillermo Stabile, stepped in and instantly became the tournament's top scorer. Meanwhile, Uruguay's attacking line was anchored by Hector Castro, a fierce forward who had accidentally severed his right forearm with a carpenter's saw as a teenager, yet dominated defenders to score critical goals. The early days of international football were lawless and unpredictable. The tournament was defined by bizarre improvisations and sheer physical grit. All of this culminated on July 30th. Tens of thousands of Argentine fans crossed the Rio de la Plata by ferry into Montevideo, bringing an atmosphere of extreme hostility to the final against the host nation, Uruguay. The local police, bracing for violence, set up strict checkpoints at the stadium gates, systematically searching fans and confiscating revolvers from the incoming crowds. The tension was so thick that the match referee, John Langenis, demanded a life insurance policy and a guaranteed escape route to a boat at the harbor before he would even agree to step onto the pitch. Then, the match was nearly halted over the equipment. Uruguay and Argentina fiercely argued over which team's football to use, with neither side willing to back down. Langenis brokered a bizarre compromise to save the final. They would use Argentina's preferred ball for the first half and switch to Uruguay's ball for the second. Lacking unified sporting standards, the raw national hostility pushed the tournament to the absolute brink of collapse before a single whistle blew. Playing with their heavier Scottish imported ball in the first half, Argentina leveraged the advantage, taking a 2-1 lead by halftime. But when Uruguay swapped to their own ball for the second half, the momentum completely reversed. They stormed back, scoring 3 unanswered goals to win the match 4-2. The immediate fallout was highly polarized. Montevideo erupted in massive celebration, and the government declared the following day a national holiday. Across the river in Buenos Aires, the mood turned to fury. Angry mobs attacked the Uruguayan consulate, an escalation that led the two nations to temporarily sever diplomatic ties. Despite the European boycotts, the unfinished concrete, and the threat of violence, the 1930 experiment worked. Uruguay's financial gamble and Jules Rimet's sheer stubbornness proved that international football could command deep national emotion. They forged the rough blueprint for an event that now captivates 5 billion people.